So we're going to have a look at béarnaise sauce now, which is a classic sauce to go with the steaks that we've just cooked. There's other sauces such as a peppercorn sauce, but this is your classic daughter sauce of hollandaise. And by saying a daughter sauce, it's meaning that it has ingredients added to that hollandaise in order to make it a béarnaise sauce. The most important thing is that you're very well prepared with all your ingredients and you have everything ready, because the ideal time that you want to start making it is while your steak is resting. So the ingredients that we've got here, we've got some egg yolks, we've got some chopped tarragon, we've got a reduction, which I'll talk about in a minute, a little bit more detail about the reduction. We've got some glace de viande, which is a very, very heavily reduced beef stock, which is going to help to give it that nice meaty flavour. And then we've also got some melted butter. Now with the melted butter, it must be unsalted butter. We don't want to use salted butter because it will affect the flavour. And it needs to be nice and hot. What we want to ensure is that the butter is going to help our egg yolks to coagulate, and that's what will help to thicken the sauce. If it's not hot enough, you end up with a very eggy flavour to your hollandaise sauce or to your béarnaise sauce. And we'll pop the ingredients into the liquidizer. So we just want to pop some egg yolks into there. You need to make sure, depending on the size of the machine that you're using, that you've got enough mixture in there for the blade to actually get hold of and to be able to whisk. So you wouldn't really want to do a small 2 egg yolk quantity in here because it just wouldn't work. We've got 5 yolks here, and we're going to just add about a teaspoon of our reduction. Now the reduction is made up of vinegar and water and a bay leaf and some peppercorns, and you just reduce it right down to lose that really harsh acidity of the vinegar. So we're just going to pop a couple of teaspoons just into there. And then what we want to do is to find something that the melted butter is going to pour nice and easily from saucepan or from a jug into this jug here. So I'm going to just pop the melted butter into my jug, and then we're just going to pop the lid on. And then turning the machine on, I'm just going to very, very slowly pour the melted butter through. I need to ensure at the beginning that it's poured through very slowly. We want to form a really good emulsion with the yolks and the butter. If you add it too quickly, it's going to split. So we're just going to pour very, very slowly. And what you'll notice is, as it starts to thicken up, the noise of the machine actually also changes as well. So we'll get that turned on now. If it does start to look like it's split, it's probably the butter going in too quickly or that it's got too hot. So you need to just put a little bit of cold water in just to ensure that that comes back. So what we should have now is a nice thickened hollandaise sauce, which, as you can see in the base there, is a nice thick sauce, almost the consistency of a kind of thick double cream. And once that's now thickened up, what we want to do is to add some tarragon into here, which is just chopped tarragon, which is going to give it that nice aniseedy flavour. And then also some glace de viande. So we're just going to pop a little bit of that in, and it's completely jellified, but into that warm sauce. That will then just melt down. Lastly, just a little bit of salt and pepper, because we've been using unsalted butter, so we need to ensure that that has had some salt added and also some pepper. And then normally, just a little bit more acidity is normally required. And that then is our nice thickened béarnaise sauce. So we're going to have a look at flavoured butters and also some marinades for chicken, both for our jointed chicken and also our spatchcock chicken as well. So first of all, with marinades and butters, if you're tending to do any barbecue chicken, you're better off looking at quite a dry marinade rather than like these, which do have quite a lot of moisture and also quite a lot of sugar in the one for the spatchcock. So you are better off looking at a dry rub. And then for barbecuing, once it's cooked, you can then finish it off with a wet marinade just to glaze it really at the end. So for the jointed chicken, what we've got here is some butter and also some rosemary. And the thing with chicken is it's a fairly mild flavoured meat, and so it can withstand fairly robust and needs quite strong flavours in order then to flavour our meat. So I'm just going to soften our butter down just a little bit, just using a fork, just so it's not too firm. And we're just using a salted butter here, just to season our meat. The rosemary wants to be really, really nice and fine. If it's too coarse, it's quite a coarse herb anyway, and it does end up being very coarse as you eat it. So nice, finely chopped rosemary. So we're going to add to this some smoked paprika. The smoked paprika is going to give it a nice smoky flavour. Also, two different types of mustard. We've got some Dijon mustard and also some grainy mustard. You can use any mustard that's left that you've got in your cupboard. You don't need to worry too much about those specific ones. And then we just want to give that now a nice mix through again. And with these flavoured butters, it's worth when you're making them, making quite a large batch really, and then just keeping it in the freezer and using it another time for other meats and things like that. So we're going to now just lift some of this onto our chicken. We don't need to worry too much about how neatly it's actually put onto the chicken meat. The one thing just to bear in mind is I've used all of this up now, but if you did have any left and you have been spooning it onto your chicken and then back again, you've got raw chicken then within that butter. So just to be aware of using the fork and the way that you use it. So we're just going to pat that down, and as that cooks it will now start to melt onto our chicken, and really it's going to baste the chicken as it's cooking. So we'll pop that onto there. And then lastly, a little bit of salt. And then we want to cook those for about 25 minutes. The brown pieces of meat, such as the drumsticks and the thigh, might take a little bit longer. So we either take the breast out a bit earlier, or if you want to, just add the breast 5 minutes once these brown meats have had a bit of cooking, just so that they all cook at the same rate. We're going to pop those into the oven. So what we've got here is our cooked chicken. We've just finished this off underneath the grill, just to give it a little bit more brown colour to it, and a little bit more golden, and so some of the butter starts to become a little bit crispy, the kind of edges of the mustard and things start to become a little bit crispy. Other butters that you might want to use are things like flavouring it maybe with thyme and garlic, or you could maybe use some butter and flavour it with harissa, like a Moroccan kind of flavour, and do those kind of ones. Or even another butter that works very well is actually whizzing up some chorizo and some butter together, so you get a chorizo flavoured butter, and just to pop that on with your chicken as you're cooking it. So we're going to lift these off now. Just pop those onto the plate. One of the things to also do with your chicken is just to make sure that it is cooked. Do go into the thickest part of the white meat, and also the thickest part down by the bone with the brown meat, to ensure that the juices are clear and that there's no pink flesh in there at all. So what we're going to have a look at now is a marinade for the spatchcock chicken, and we're kind of using some Asian flavours here. First of all, we've got some maple syrup and some sesame oil. Obviously the maple syrup is going to sweeten it and also help to colour up the chicken as well. And we've got some soy sauce, and we're going to use some ginger and some garlic. So what we want to do to prepare these two ingredients here, we need to get our ginger peeled, and one of the best ways of peeling it is just to use a teaspoon just to remove that skin. And we're only going to just use a small part of this ginger. And what we actually also want to achieve is the juice that kind of comes out with the ginger as you grate it, to include that as well in our marinade. So I'm using a fairly coarse grater here just to I'm going to pop that into our bowl with the maple syrup and the sesame oil, and also the soy sauce as well. The one thing to be aware of is the sesame oil does tend to have a much lower smoking point, and it can burn quite easily, so just to be aware of that as you're cooking. The garlic, we just want to peel that down, and rather than having big pieces of garlic, we do actually want to now break that down into a puree. Give that a good mix. So with this marinade, we're going to put this on totally all over our chicken at the beginning. You could keep a little bit back if you wanted to and keep re-marinating it as you're going through. And what might benefit is if the actual spatchcock chicken has maybe overnight or a couple of hours with this marinade sitting in a bag or in a bowl or something like that, just so that it can take on the flavours and take those flavours on with the flesh. All right. So we'll now take out our cooked spatchcock chicken. And what we do want to do just when it comes out of the oven is just to get some of those juices that have come out the chicken as it's cooking, and just to baste those over. And then for serving, just remove these skewers now. And obviously the skewers have helped to cook the chicken. Having metal skewers going through, it will help to cook our chicken right through into the centre. And then we're just going to lift this one off. Now for serving, portion-wise, you could either cut it in half and then into smaller pieces and portion that up, or you could just, if it's a small chicken, cut it in half and just have half a chicken. So we'll just lift that out and pop that also onto our plate. It's quite important with this one because the way that spatchcocking is done, and that meat, the brown meat, comes right into the middle here. It's very, very thick parts of chicken to cook, so it's important that you test right in there to make sure the juices are clear and that it is completely cooked, because that will be the last place that cooks. So there's our spatchcock chicken and also our mustard chicken as well.